Hi, everyone. Peter Lynch here. Today's topic, we're going to talk about health and legal documents. It's kind of important in this time frame. It's very current information. I just want to kind of get this out to everybody, just to give them something. Some people have some downtime right now. Not everybody, but if you happen to be one of those who happen to have downtime, this is a great opportunity to review some of your legal documents. Tax documents are out anyway, right? We're preparing our tax documents. So everything's kind of on the table now. It's a good chance to locate a lot of the ones that are important and then get them organized and make sure that they're still current and the documents are still following the intentions that you have based upon what you want to accomplish. And what I'm talking about is like beneficiary type forms, healthcare forms, wills, trusts, guardianship provisions in your will. If you happen to have children that are minors, make sure that those are still the guardians that you want. I mean, a lot of times we set these things and we forget them, but this is a really good time to kind of go through and review a lot of that stuff. Tax returns. The IRS, the guidance that they give on tax returns, how long you keep them, is really just only 3 years. So if all things being equal, it was a very simple return, 3 years is probably a good time frame to hold them. Maybe start setting up a shred pile at this point and start shredding some of those legal documents. So for privacy purposes and identity theft and all that stuff, it's probably better to, if you have a hard copy of them, to shred them. The other part is to do flash drives and kind of organize them on your virtual or electronic folders. You can do it that way as well. I personally keep my tax returns for 7 years just because there's some business stuff involved with that. So if you want to be on the safe side, 7 years is fine. Recently, we've run into some clients and prospects that have had their tax returns since the 80s, and they're very proud of it, but it's starting to take up a lot of the room in their storage space. So it just might be a good time to maybe put that to the side and shred it at some point down the road. A big one right now, as far as the legal documents go, and why I wanted to do this video today was the advanced directives. An advanced directive, if you want to Google it, you can pull it up online. Basically, it's a document that tells people how you want to be treated from a medical point of view. And there's two parts of the advanced directive. One is a living will, and one is a durable power of attorney. So the living will tells everyone, if you can't speak for yourself, what type of treatment that you want. And the power of attorney is obviously assigning that to somebody else to speak on your behalf when you are unable to. And the reason why this is important today, or in today's climate, is because hospitals are very strict on who's coming in and who's not coming in, right? So it's even hard just to be sick to get into the hospitals. You have to have a certain type of sickness. But say, for example, I get the virus. I got to go to the hospital. I'm in the room. They're treating me up. I don't know what state I'm going to be in, and doctors are going to be asking me questions, and who knows the medication I'm going to be on. I'm the only one that's going to be in there. Like, my wife normally would be in the room with me, but they're not letting them in the hospital. Like, she would not be allowed in the hospital during this time frame. Normally she would, so I would just defer to her and have her speak to the doctors and say, yeah, he's got a fever, he's got a cold, whatever it might be. But in this world that we're living in right now, all the hospitals are very restrictive and they're not letting other people in there. So that's why this becomes very important. Make sure you have these advanced directives, pardon me, or at least a durable power of attorney. If you have it already, pull it out, locate it, have it ready. If it still says your intentions on there, fine. Make sure that power of attorney, who you're assigning that to, has a copy of that, because that's really critical too, because if I get rushed to the hospital, I don't know where this document is. So do it before you need it, is kind of what the advice is for today's webinar. The other one is beneficiary reviews and updates. It's a good time also, if you're looking at some of these documents. Look, you're looking at your will, so see who you're leaving everything to. A lot of times, the spouse, it goes to the spouse, and then it goes to the kids. There might be nieces, there might be nephews in there. Just revisit it, see if that's still current, because some of them, that may not be what your intentions are anymore. The next part of the beneficiaries will be any of your IRAs, your 401ks, 403bs, life insurance policies, annuities. All those have beneficiaries on them. So just double check them, locate them, get a copy of them, put them in with all your other important documents, just so you have them, so the beneficiaries don't have to run around looking for these things when they need them the most. The other part, when you look at your beneficiary forms, there's a primary beneficiary and there's also contingent beneficiaries. Most people bypass the contingent beneficiaries because they usually just name a spouse and then, whatever. They may not have kids yet, and now 10 years have gone by and they got 2 or 3 kids. So this might be a good time to revisit and start naming some of the contingent beneficiaries on there. It's very important to have a contingent beneficiary named because they'd be named on the original document. Because if the primary beneficiary or beneficiaries predecease you, or they die in a time period where they didn't get a chance to update their primary beneficiaries, then the contingent beneficiaries move up. So it sounds a little bit confusing, but just double check it. If you have any questions on it, give me a call. We can kind of walk through the primary versus the contingent beneficiaries. They also go outside your will. So the beneficiary forms on life insurance, IRAs, and all that, it has nothing to do with your will. So your will might say, I want my kids to get it equally, but if your beneficiary form says, it's my brother who I put on there when I first got my job 20 years ago and I never changed it, my brother's getting that beneficiary. They're going to get that IRA account. It doesn't go to the will. So that stuff goes outside of the will, and then the will captures everything else. So it's very important because a lot of people have most of their assets in IRAs, 401ks, things like that, and also life insurance. All right. And the last piece that I want to talk about today is, what arrangements have you made for your final expenses? I know it sounds a little bit morbid, but in this time frame that we're living in, a lot of people are kind of reconsidering what their situation is, and hey, let's get our documents in order because we don't know what's going on with this, and everybody's heard a story about somebody or a family that's been affected by this. Final expenses, it's a pretty tricky arena. Most people, and I've been guilty of this as well, we have transfers upon death, maybe bank accounts. We have life insurance. There's money accessible to the beneficiaries eventually. And that's where I've been guilty of this. And recently we've kind of worked with another group that we do a lot of work with, and they opened my eyes to it, that having liquidity during the final expense period, which I'm talking about 24 to 48 hours after death, is critical to a lot of families. And the reason why is because you can't access any other accounts or any insurance policies unless you have a death certificate. And a death certificate on a normal basis would take maybe 10 business days. So you're looking at about 2 weeks by the time you get the death certificate process, get it back. And then normally myself as an advisor, I would get that death certificate. I would send it out to the insurance companies and make the transfers and have the money come to the beneficiaries. Well, number one, it takes a long time to get a death certificate in a regular basis. Now it's taking even longer because of these state programs that are a little bit backed up and they're on skeleton crews. And the big part is normally somebody passes away. Well, there's funeral expenses, there's travel expenses, depending upon what your religious background is. There's celebration of life. There might be wakes, there might be funerals. This stuff costs quite a bit of money. And what normally happens is the beneficiaries, they don't have it. They know they're going to get it, but in the meantime, everybody starts huddling around outside saying, well, who's got room on their credit card, right? This is what normally happens. And it's unfortunate because usually the more successful parties, beneficiaries, whoever else, my family members, they're going to be the ones putting it on the credit card. And then what happens is they may not necessarily get it all paid back on a timely basis, because then the death certificates come in and then the estate is kind of frozen. It takes a long time and it makes Thanksgiving very awkward, if you know what I mean. So what we're trying to do now is there's programs out there that we can get instant liquidity for beneficiaries in 24 to 48 hours that they can actually use for travel, hotels, funeral costs, whatever else might be involved with it. And it makes a big, big difference. And it's not a lot of money. All you're doing is taking your own money and just kind of parking it somewhere and earmarking it so the beneficiaries have access to it. So you can avoid this very uncomfortable, how are we going to pay for this? So on the bottom of this email, or I think attached to this email, we're going to send out a quick little survey. It's a one-pager. Looks something just like this. It's really simple. You can probably just do it right online and just send it back to us. It's really simple. It's not asking any personal type question on there, but just kind of felt type stuff about liquidity during final expense period for the beneficiaries. How much do you want them to have? How important is it for you? And it may not be important. You may have other provisions in place, and we can talk about that. But I just wanted to get that out because all these other topics are very similar at this point. So we might as well kind of do a clean sweep and make sure we address all these different things. And again, with the time that I have available, we're not seeing as many people, but we're doing it virtually. We're doing it on the phone. So this might be an opportunity that we can maybe talk over the phone. If I get a copy of your survey, we'll just walk through it and tell you what's important, what we're seeing, why it's important, and some things that maybe we can do based upon the results of the survey. So that's all I have for today. If you have any questions on this, by all means, just send us an email. There's a virtual calendar on the bottom of this email as well. A lot of you have been using that, and I really appreciate that because it makes our job a lot easier since we're all mostly working remotely. So the appointments are getting on there. We're able to call back clients and set up times to talk a little bit further about things that are important to them at this point. Okay, so that's it for today. God bless, stay safe, and I'll be sending a couple more of these out. So hope you're getting used to these things, and I hope they're valuable too. And if they're valuable, please forward them to anybody you think that might have any interest in it, and we will speak soon. Okay, thank you.